In 1974, a steelworker's lunchbox in Youngstown, Ohio, contained a single sandwich made of 2 slices of white bread and a thick smear of mayonnaise. Nothing else. He ate that same sandwich every workday for 9 years. His wife packed it because that was what they could afford. Number 7 on this list was the sandwich that fed half of America's latchkey children when their mothers went back to work. Number 3 was so common in church basements that nobody bothered to write the recipe down. And number 1, the sandwich that defined poor American kitchens through the entire decade of stagflation, has all but vanished from the modern lunch table. These 30 sandwiches were not nostalgia. They were arithmetic. They were what working families ate when gasoline doubled, beef tripled, and a paycheck stopped reaching Friday. Hit subscribe before we count down the 30 forgotten poor man's sandwiches from the 1970s no one makes anymore. Number 30. The mayonnaise sandwich, 2 slices of white bread, a heavy spoonful of Hellmann's or Duke's, depending on which side of the Mason-Dixon line you grew up on. A pinch of salt, if your mother was being generous. That was the entire sandwich. In 1974, a jar of mayonnaise cost about 79 cents. A loaf of Wonder Bread was 36 cents. A working man could pack a lunch for under a dime, and millions of them did. The mayo soaked into the soft bread until the whole sandwich turned almost custardy in the middle. It was creamy, rich, and somehow filling in a way that defied its ingredients. Lunch pails across the Rust Belt carried this every single day. Nobody complained because nobody had room to. Number 29. Sugar bread. A slice of white bread, a thin smear of softened butter or oleo, and a teaspoon of white sugar sprinkled across the top. Folded in half. That was supper for a child in 1,000 households in the 1970s, when the refrigerator was empty and payday was Friday. The butter held the sugar in place, so every bite carried a small crunch, followed by a soft, sweet melt. Sugar cost about 65 cents for 5 pounds in 1973. A pound of margarine ran 32 cents. The whole sandwich came to less than 2 cents. Mothers gave it to their children before bed without apology. The kids ate it without knowing they were eating a Depression-era trick that had been quietly passed down for 40 years. Number 28. The ketchup sandwich. 2 slices of bread, a generous pour of Heinz ketchup directly from the bottle, closed and pressed flat with the palm of the hand. The ketchup soaked into the bread, turning it pink and slightly soggy at the center, while staying dry at the edges. A bottle of ketchup cost about 49 cents in 1975. It contained tomato, sugar, vinegar, and salt in proportions that made even plain bread taste like a meal. Children across the rural South and the industrial North ate this when there was nothing else. Some mothers added a slice of American cheese when the budget allowed and called it fancy. The sandwich never appeared on a menu. It barely appeared in cookbooks. It appeared on plates because it had to. Number 27. Banana and mayo. This is the one Yankees flinch at. Across the South, especially in Georgia, Alabama, and the Carolinas, a sliced banana laid on white bread with a generous spread of mayo was a perfectly ordinary lunch in 1972. The banana sweetness against the tang of the mayonnaise created something that did not taste like either ingredient alone. A bunch of bananas cost about 15 cents a pound. A jar of Duke's mayonnaise was $1. This sandwich fed children in mill towns, in farm kitchens, and in school lunches packed at 5 in the morning. Northerners called it disgusting. Southerners called it Tuesday. The recipe lived in handwritten notebooks, tucked into kitchen drawers, never explained because everyone already knew. Number 26. Peanut butter and pickle. Smooth peanut butter, spread thick on one slice of white bread. Sliced dill pickles, drained and patted dry, laid in a single overlapping row. The top slice was pressed firmly. The salt of the pickle cut through the sweet richness of the peanut butter in a way that should not have worked, but absolutely did. Skippy cost 89 cents a jar in 1976. A jar of Vlasic dills was 65 cents. Mothers across the Midwest packed these for their husbands' lunch pails because they held up for hours without going soggy. The vinegar from the pickles brightened the heavy peanut butter, and the bread stayed firm until noon. Today, food bloggers call it weird. In 1976, it was just lunch. Number 25, pimento cheese. Sharp cheddar grated by hand, mixed with a jar of diced pimentos, a heavy spoonful of mayonnaise, and a pinch of black pepper, stirred together in a bowl until it formed a thick orange paste. Spread between two slices of white bread, sometimes with the crusts trimmed for the ladies' luncheons. Pimento cheese cost almost nothing to make at home and showed up at every church social, every funeral, and every Sunday lunch from Virginia to Texas through the entire decade. A block of cheddar ran about $1 a pound. A 4-ounce jar of pimentos was 39 cents. This sandwich tasted of the South in a way that nothing made in a factory has ever managed to replicate. Number 24, Underwood deviled ham. That little white tin, wrapped in yellow parchment paper, sat in pantries all across America. A small can of Underwood deviled ham cost 35 cents in 1973 and fed 3 children when spread on white bread with yellow mustard. The ham had been mechanically separated and seasoned with mustard, vinegar, and spices until it became a salty, slightly tangy paste with a strange pink color and a flavor far better than its appearance suggested. Mothers made these for school lunches because they kept in the refrigerator for a week after opening, and the children never complained. Some added a leaf of iceberg lettuce for crunch. The tin itself was tiny, almost dainty, and emptying one felt like a small ceremony. Number 23, fried bologna. Thick-cut Oscar Mayer bologna, scored with 2 cuts at the edges to keep it from curling, dropped into a hot cast-iron skillet until both sides blistered and browned. It was then slid onto 2 slices of white bread with a yellow squeeze of mustard. A pound of bologna cost 79 cents in 1975 and fed a family for 2 days. The smell of frying bologna at 5 in the afternoon was the smell of the American working class coming home from the shift. The meat puffed up in the middle as it cooked, swelling out of its casing, and the bread soaked up the warm pork fat at the bottom. Children ate them after school with a glass of cold milk. Men ate them after work with a cold beer. Number 22, liverwurst and onion on rye. A thick slice of liverwurst laid on rye bread with a slice of raw white onion and a smear of yellow mustard. The liverwurst cost about 99 cents a pound in 1972, and it contained the kind of organ meat that was nutritionally dense and culturally invisible at the same time. The onion bit sharp against the rich, almost creamy texture of the liver. The mustard pulled it all together. Older Germans and Polish families across Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan ate this for lunch every weekday without thinking twice. It was dense, savory, and packed with iron and B vitamins that working men actually needed. The smell on the breath afterward was unforgettable. Nobody minded because everyone smelled the same. Number 21, olive loaf. Olive loaf was the strangest of the lunch meat family, a pink processed pork product studded with whole green olives and pimentos visible in cross-section. A pound cost about 89 cents in 1975. Sliced thin and laid on white bread with mayo, the briny olives created small bursts of salt and acid against the smooth, mild meat. Children either loved it or refused to touch it. There was no middle ground. School cafeteria workers across the Midwest packed these into the brown paper sacks that working mothers handed their kids at 6:30 in the morning. The slice itself looked almost decorative, a pink canvas dotted with green and red. The flavor was straight 1970s lunch counter. Number 20, tuna salad with sweet relish. A can of chicken of the sea, drained heavily, dumped into a bowl, mashed with a fork, then mixed with mayonnaise, sweet pickle relish, and a finely diced rib of celery, with a grind of black pepper. Spread between two slices of white bread, or for the grown-ups, on toast. A can of tuna cost 33 cents in 1974. The whole bowl made 4 sandwiches for under $1. The sweetness of the relish balanced the briny flake of the fish. The celery added a quiet crunch. Mothers made it on Monday, and the family ate from it through Wednesday. Today, tuna salad has been replaced by gas station tuna pouches and pre-packaged kits. The original was better. Number 19, EGG salad. 6 hard, boiled eggs, peeled at the kitchen sink while still warm, chopped fine with a butter knife in a wide bowl, mayonnaise, yellow mustard, sweet pickle relish, salt, pepper, stirred together until the yolks broke down into a yellow paste flecked with white. Spread thick between 2 slices of white bread, the filling almost overflowing the edges. A dozen eggs cost 78 cents in 1974. This sandwich appeared at every Sunday school picnic, every wake, and every Saturday lunch in spring. The relish was the part most people forgot when they tried to make it later. Without it, the sandwich was bland. With it, the whole thing came alive. Grandmothers knew this without being told. Number 18, salmon patty sandwich. Leftover salmon patties from Friday's supper, cold from the refrigerator, slid between 2 slices of white bread with a smear of mayonnaise and a leaf of iceberg. A tall can of pink salmon cost 65 cents in 1973. The patties had been fried in bacon grease the night before, so they carried the flavor of the skillet into the cold sandwich. The crisp coating softened slightly against the bread, but the inside stayed firm and pink. Working men carried these in metal lunch pails to construction sites and factory floors. The mayo kept everything moist through the morning. By noon, the bread had absorbed just enough salmon flavor to taste like part of the filling. This was Saturday's lunch in 1,000 kitchens. First pattern break. Here is something the food companies do not want you to think about for too long. The sandwiches on this list cost almost nothing because they were built from ingredients that grocery stores could not mark up. A jar of mayo, a bag of bread, a can of tuna, a tube of bologna. There is no luxury margin on Wonder Bread. There is no celebrity endorsement behind a tin of deviled ham. The companies that did sell these things made their money on volume, not prestige. That is why food advertising in the 1970s shifted hard toward hamburger helper and frozen TV dinners. Those products could carry 3 times the cost for half the work. The poor man's sandwich could not be improved upon, so the industry simply convinced us it was beneath us. Cucumber and mayo. Garden cucumbers peeled in long stripes and sliced thin, laid in overlapping rows across white bread spread with mayonnaise. A pinch of salt, a grind of black pepper. Trimmed crusts for the ladies' tea, full crusts for the children. A cucumber from the backyard cost nothing. A jar of mayo lasted a month. This was the summer lunch that mothers made for hot afternoons when nobody wanted anything heavy. The cucumber stayed cool against the warm bread. The salt drew out a little water and softened the whole thing into a gentle, almost refreshing bite. Every farm wife in the Midwest made these in July without thinking of them as anything special. Number 16. The tomato sandwich. 2 slices of soft white bread, a heavy smear of Duke's mayonnaise on each, thick slabs of homegrown tomato still warm from the windowsill where they had ripened, salt, black pepper, pressed together until the tomato juice ran down the wrists of whoever was eating it. A backyard tomato cost nothing in August. A loaf of bread was 39 cents. This was the sandwich that defined Southern summer in the 1970s. The bread soaked through pink with tomato juice. The mayo turned glossy where it touched the warm fruit. People ate them standing over the kitchen sink because they were too messy for a plate. Food critics now call this an icon. In 1975, it was just what you ate when the garden came in. Number 15, fried Spam. A slice of Spam from the blue tin, fried in a cast iron skillet until the edges crisped and the surface caramelized into a dark mahogany. Pressed between 2 slices of white bread with yellow mustard and a slice of American cheese. A can of Spam cost 59 cents in 1974. The fried slab tasted nothing like the cold pink rectangle that had slid out of the can. The heat of the skillet transformed it into something almost smoky, with a salty crust that snapped under the teeth. In Hawaii, this became cuisine. On the mainland, it was a working-class lunch that appeared in pantries from Maine to California. Veterans had eaten it during the war and brought the habit home. It never quite left. Number 14, the Sloppy Joe. A pound of ground beef browned in a skillet with diced onion, then drained. Campbell's tomato soup poured in undiluted, sometimes with a splash of Worcestershire and a spoonful of brown sugar. It simmered for 15 minutes until thick and was spooned onto a soft hamburger bun. A pound of ground chuck cost 89 cents in 1976. A can of soup cost 19 cents. This dinner on a bun appeared in school cafeterias, church youth group suppers, and weeknight kitchens across the entire country. The Manwich brand came along and convinced America the sauce had to come from a can, but the original was made from whatever was in the pantry. The bun absorbed the meat sauce until it nearly fell apart in the hand. Children ate them with 2 napkins and no apologies. Number 13, cinnamon toast sandwich. A slice of white bread toasted under the broiler until just golden. It was buttered immediately while warm, then sprinkled heavily with a mixture of white sugar and ground cinnamon. A second piece of toast was laid on top, cut diagonally, and served on a small plate with a glass of milk. A jar of cinnamon cost about 49 cents, and it lasted a year. The sugar melted into the warm butter, creating a thin glaze that crackled against the crisp toast. This was breakfast for sick children, after-school snacks for hungry ones, and bedtime suppers for everyone in between. The smell of cinnamon and warm butter from a kitchen at 4 in the afternoon meant a mother was home and somebody loved you. Number 12, the Fluffernutter. Peanut butter and marshmallow fluff sandwich. A thick layer of peanut butter on 1 slice of white bread. An equally thick layer of marshmallow fluff on the other, pressed together until they merged into a sandwich that was almost impossibly sweet. A jar of marshmallow fluff cost 39 cents in 1973 and lasted forever in the cupboard. New England children grew up eating these, but the recipe spread across the country during the 1970s as mothers looked for cheap lunch fillings their children would actually eat. The peanut butter held the structure. The fluff added a soft, sticky cloud that pulled apart in long strings when the sandwich was bitten. Children loved them with a fierce loyalty. Dentists hated them. Both reactions were correct. Quick note before we keep going. If you want a full collection like this, I made a cookbook with 100 simple meals from the same era, the kind your grandmother actually cooked. The link is in the description below. Now back to the list. Number 11, the sardine sandwich. A flat tin of King Oscar sardines packed in oil, drained over the sink, then dumped onto white bread with a squeeze of lemon and a slice of raw onion. The little fish lined up in formation across the bread, glistening with oil. A tin cost 35 cents in 1974. Older Italian, Polish, and Portuguese families across the Northeast ate these for lunch without a second thought. The smell was strong, oily, and intensely savory. It announced itself in the room before it reached the table. The mustard or lemon cut through the richness, and the bread soaked up the oil at the bottom. Working men in lunchrooms peeled back the lids and ate them straight from the tin when bread was not available. Number 10, Vienna sausage sandwich. A small can of Vienna sausages drained of its strange, slightly cloudy broth. The little plump cylinders were sliced lengthwise and laid in a row across white bread with mustard and a leaf of iceberg lettuce. A can of Armour Vienna sausages cost 27 cents in 1975. Children loved them for reasons no adult could quite explain. The sausages were soft, faintly sweet, and almost rubbery in a way that should have been off-putting, but somehow worked. Hunters carried these into the woods. Fathers packed them in fishing tackle boxes. Mothers used them for last resort suppers when the cupboard was bare. The cans were stacked in pyramids in pantries across rural America, each one waiting for the day when there was nothing else to make. Number 9, potted meat. A small can of potted meat, the kind with a label that listed beef tripe, beef hearts, and partially defatted cooked beef fatty tissue in that exact, unforgiving order. It opened with a pull tab and was spread on saltine crackers or on white bread with mustard. The meat had the texture of pâté and a flavor that was somehow both meaty and chemical at the same time. A can cost 19 cents in 1976. It appeared in the lunch boxes of the working poor, in hunting camps, and in the tornado shelters of the Midwest, where it sat for years waiting for an emergency. Nobody pretended it was good. Everyone admitted it was filling. That was enough in 1976. The honesty about what it was is something the modern food industry has lost entirely. Number 8, chipped beef on toast. Sometimes called something far less printable by every veteran who came back from World War II or Korea, chipped beef on toast was the open-faced sandwich that fed millions of working families through the 1970s. Thin slices of dried, salted beef from a small glass jar, about 35 cents at the A&P, torn into ribbons and stirred into a thick white sauce of butter, flour, and milk. Ladled hot over 2 slices of white toast. The toast soaked up the cream gravy until the corners stayed crisp and the center turned soft and savory. The beef gave the sauce all the salt it needed. Fathers ate this for breakfast on Saturday mornings. Children ate it for supper on Wednesday. Nobody thought it was strange. Number 7, the Latchkey Kid Special, Second Pattern Break. Here is a sandwich the cookbooks never named because it was assembled by children whose mothers had gone back to work. 2 slices of white bread, a slice of American cheese still in its plastic wrapper, a squeeze of yellow mustard, and a handful of potato chips pressed flat between the bread before the top slice went on. A child of 9 could make this in 2 minutes after school with no adult supervision. A bag of Lay's cost 49 cents in 1976. A pack of Kraft Singles ran 79 cents. The chips broke into smaller and smaller pieces with each bite. mixing salt and crunch and cheese into something a kid could eat in front of the television without missing a single moment of Gilligan's Island. This sandwich fed a generation while their parents worked the swing shift. It was independence on bread. It was the taste of being old enough to make your own lunch and young enough to still need someone to come home. Number 6, apple butter and biscuit. Cold biscuits left over from breakfast were split open with a butter knife and smeared thick with apple butter from a mason jar put up the previous October. The apple butter tasted of cinnamon, cloves, and slow-simmered fruit. A jar cost almost nothing because everyone made their own. Spread on a cold biscuit, the apple butter softened the crumb and turned the whole thing into something between a sandwich and a small pie. Children carried these to school in waxed paper. Farmers carried them into the field. The biscuit absorbed just enough of the spiced fruit to taste like dessert without being too sweet. In Appalachia, this was breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snack rolled into one humble parcel. Number 5, hot dog wrapped in bread. Not a hot dog in a bun. A hot dog wrapped in a slice of folded white bread because the family had run out of buns and had no money to buy more. An 8-pack of Oscar Mayer wieners cost 79 cents in 1975. A loaf of bread cost 39 cents. The bread had no give at the ends, so the hot dog stuck out at both sides. Mustard, ketchup, or sweet pickle relish, if there was any in the door of the refrigerator. Children ate them standing in the kitchen with no plate. This was supper on Tuesday in working-class kitchens from Maine to California. The bread tasted nothing like a bun, but a hungry kid did not care. The substitution itself was the point. You used what you had. You did not give up on supper just because the right bread was missing. Number 4, pickle and cream cheese. A brick of Philadelphia cream cheese left out on the counter for an hour to soften, spread thick on white bread, or in fancier homes on dark pumpernickel, topped with thin slices of dill pickle and pressed firmly. The salt of the pickle cut sharply against the rich, almost sour cream cheese. Sometimes a sprinkle of chopped chives if the garden was producing, sometimes a layer of thin sliced ham for grown-up versions. An 8-ounce brick cost 49 cents in 1973. The sandwich appeared at bridge club luncheons, baby showers, and Sunday after church coffee hours throughout the suburbs. The crusts were almost always trimmed. The squares were usually cut on the diagonal. It was poor man's food dressed up enough to be served on a doily. Number 3, mock chicken salad. Third pattern break. This is the one served in church basements, school cafeterias, and every farmhouse from Georgia to Iowa. Cold leftover pork roast or canned pork, chopped fine, mixed with mayonnaise, finely diced celery, sweet pickle relish, and a pinch of salt. Spread on soft white bread with the crusts trimmed and cut into 4 small triangles. The whole thing tasted exactly like chicken salad, but it cost half as much. A pork shoulder ran 69 cents a pound in 1974. The recipe lived in spiral-bound community cookbooks, where it was filed under the heading sandwiches and never explained to outsiders. Funeral lunches were built around this sandwich. Wedding showers were built around this sandwich. An entire generation of American women carried this recipe in their heads and made it for any occasion that required feeding 50 people on $12. Nobody who ate it knew it was not chicken until they were told. Most people, told the truth, did not believe it. Number 2, the Monday meatloaf sandwich. Cold meatloaf from Sunday supper, sliced thick the next morning, laid on white bread with a smear of mayonnaise on one side and a smear of yellow mustard on the other. A leaf of iceberg lettuce for crunch. The leftover meatloaf still had the brown sugar and ketchup glaze on top, slightly sticky from the refrigerator. A pound of ground beef cost 89 cents in 1975, and it stretched into 2 suppers and 4 sandwiches when the meatloaf had been padded with breadcrumbs and onion the way every working mother knew how to do. The bread soaked up just enough cold beef fat to taste like the meatloaf had married it. Working men carried these in lunch pails. Children carried them to school. The Monday meatloaf sandwich was the unspoken reason mothers made meatloaf on Sunday in the first place. Number 1. The mayo and white bread supper. At the top of this list is the sandwich nobody wants to admit fed an entire decade. 2 slices of Wonder Bread, a heavy smear of mayonnaise, salt. That was supper in 1,000 households in the 1970s on Thursday nights when the paycheck was almost gone and Friday felt impossibly far away. A jar of Hellmann's cost 79 cents. A loaf of bread was 36 cents. A whole sandwich was made for under a nickel. The bread soaked up the mayonnaise until the center turned soft and almost custardy. The salt brought it together into something that tasted, against all odds, like a real meal. Working mothers made these for their children and ate nothing themselves so the kids could have a second one. Stagflation had made beef expensive, eggs scarce, and gasoline a luxury. The mayonnaise sandwich was what the working class ate when the math finally ran out. It is the sandwich every food magazine has scrubbed from its archive. It is the sandwich every old Midwesterner remembers without wanting to. It fed more American children through the back half of the 1970s than any school lunch program ever did. We pretended later we had never eaten it. The truth is most of us did, and we were grateful. Here is my challenge. Make one of these this week. Just one. The fried bologna, the tomato sandwich, the cold meatloaf on white bread. Then come back and tell me whether your grandmother was being nostalgic or whether she actually knew something we forgot. Drop your favorite in the comments. I want to know if the fluffernutter gets more love than the pimento cheese, because these were not just sandwiches, they were how a whole generation got through the week.